Hi, I'm George Crump, lead analyst with Storage Switzerland. Problems with CBT backups. So one of the things that we talk about a lot when we're talking about data protection challenges is some of the good things that virtualization does for you. First of all, it really enables disaster recovery sites, things like that. It also gives us a couple of key features that everybody likes to take advantage of. One of those is change block tracking backups. What that is we can back up a virtual machine, and instead of backing up the whole VM to a disk backup appliance, what we can do is actually peer inside the VM and just back up the blocks that have changed since the last backup. So in this case, let's say we've got our full VM image over here, and then we've gone for a little bit, and let's say these blocks right here have been changed for some reason. Just those get backed up across the network and are updated here. And there's a lot of good things that come out of that, meaning, number one, I can use much less network here. Well, what happens is, number one, administrators that have this capability tend to do a lot more backups. And they do them more frequently. So instead of maybe doing it once a night, you might be doing these once an hour. Okay? Also, the size of the backup is small. Right? So if you compare that to the normal backup process that we used to do 5-6 years ago, where we did one big backup, one big job once a night, now we have very small backups happening all the time with very small data. Well, suddenly the data traffic that's going from the server being protected to the backup device starts to look like almost like a database. It's very small I/O, it's happening pretty frequently, and the size of the backup is very small. Now, I just have one virtual machine drawn up here. Remember that in a real environment, we'll have a lot of servers with a lot of VMs, all triggering change block traffic backup throughout the day, potentially every hour. In some cases, we've even seen more. So what you end up with is this backup appliance now is suddenly being bombarded with a lot of small I/O constantly throughout the day. Again, very similar to a database. So what we start to recommend now, believe it or not, is disk backup appliances that actually have a small tier of SSD. And the reason we do that is so that this small traffic can actually start by landing on SSD. So it's very fast, it can be received very quickly, it handles this sort of random I/O pattern very well. Then have a bunch of drives that are high capacity so that we can store these backups cost effectively, right? Now, the other question is, how important is deduplication and compression in this scenario? Because we start to eliminate a lot of the redundancy that those technologies count on. And the software that performs these backups also does its own deduplication and compression, right? So that's a key thing to look at as we start to work with change block tracking backups. Or we're doing backups more frequently, we're doing smaller I/O, we need to change how we think about the backup appliance and actually start thinking about putting a small SSD tier in here to be the receiver for the initial wave of backups and then slowly push those to disk. That's a key thing to consider with change block tracking backups. I'm George Crump, lead analyst with Storage Switzerland.